Hello. Whilst researching my history of Talisman, I was introduced to a Games Workshop game I had never heard of, one that I don't think many people have heard of. It was designed by Ian Livingstone and Lord Andrew Lloyd-Webber. Wait, what? I'm Jordan, this is Joylin Sorcery, and today we're taking a look at Calamity. Just a quick trigger warning, Calamity does feature some very mild but very insensitive depictions of suicide. It's not that shocking, but I just wanted to make people aware in case they didn't want to have to see any of that. In 1983, Games Workshop released a board game that would change gaming history forever. It's never been out of print, and it's an absolute classic. That game is Talisman, and if you want to see the history of it, you can check this video here. But you're here for the other game that Games Workshop released in 1983, Calamity, which is very different. Calamity is a board game of high-risk insurance sales. This is a game that has cover art that features an insurance salesman who wants to kill himself not once, but twice. And it has got diagrams, flowcharts, tables and rules that are the driest and most boring looking things I have ever seen in my entire career of gaming. Seriously, it has got a turn flowchart that is just depressing to look at. But this is not a game that is boring to play. It's actually incredibly surprisingly interesting, and I can't even begin to understand how this has happened. The game rules were developed by Games Workshop founder Ian Livingstone and game designer Derek Carver. Carver had been designing games to play with his friends for several years, and on occasion Livingstone would join his gaming table. Having designed a game called Durant's Vial, Livingstone and Games Workshop wanted to reskin it and release it under their latest license, Doctor Who. And so, in 1980, Doctor Who, The Game of Time and Space was released. Carver would later design medieval-themed board games Blood Royale and Warrior Knights for Games Workshop, but before that, it's insurance time. The story goes that Lord Andrew Lloyd-Webber had decided to make an insurance-based game. He really liked the look of Monopoly, I guess, and wanted to do something similar himself, but whatever the reason, he produced a prototype and approached Games Workshop with it. Ian Livingstone and Derek Carver went around to have a little play, and they were not impressed. They found the game to be pretty boring and not really the kind of fun stuff they wanted to produce. But Ian Livingstone was very keen on working with Andrew Lloyd-Webber because he thought that the name would help sell some units and they could have a Christmas hit on their hands. Derek Carver, on the other hand, was just waiting to get round the corner to the local pub because he really was bored to tears playing this game. They took away the prototype, and then Ian Livingstone and Derek Carver worked on what they both agreed was actually an excellent mechanic at the heart of the game to develop something new and refreshed and interesting. Unfortunately, Andrew Lloyd-Webber thought that it went too far away from his original design and wasn't really his game anymore, but it still had his name on it, and it was still released to the UK market in 1983. In Carver's words, the overall gaming experience was dire, and Ian and I couldn't wait to get away to the local pub. But at the heart of Andrew's game was what I considered to be an excellent gaming mechanic. I undertook to remake the game, but using Andrew's basic idea, and without the jokes. Jokes never being ideal in a board game due to their constant repetition. I actually reached out to Lord Andrew Lloyd-Webber and Ian Livingstone to see if they had any reflections on the development of the game that they wanted to share with me. Now, understandably, given that I'm just some total random person on the internet, neither responded. No hard feelings at all. I'm not surprised one jot. I decided not to reach out to Derek Carver. He's 92 and he's already done a load of interviews about the development of the game, so I've already got a lot of his thoughts. And Ian Livingstone, to be fair, has already included a little bit about the development of the game in his book Dice Men. So I've included all of that information here in this video. There was another party who were involved in the development of the game who did respond to me though when I asked for a comment, and that was the Sentry Insurance Group. The Sentry Insurance Group is actually a massive multinational insurance firm. They handle lots and lots of different types of insurance claims and stuff like that. I guess they wanted to sponsor Calamity because it was set in the insurance world and they thought it would get their name in front of, I don't know, 10 and 12-year-olds who are playing the game at Christmas. The response I got was from their PR agent, who said that he's actually collating some of the history of Century Insurance Group and looking at all of the different things they've been involved at over the years. Unfortunately, he didn't have any more information for me right now about their involvement in the game, but he did say that if he does discover anything, he will reach out and let me know. I, of course, will share that with you should I find anything else out. I don't know, I just thought it was very fun that the only person who was interested in talking to me was the random insurance company that have their name on the back of the cards. Okay, so we talked about all the random background drama, but how does this game actually play? Well, it is clearly inspired by Monopoly, and at first glance it does seem like they've just subbed out real estate in favour of insurance policies. But that actually does a major disservice to this game. I know I said earlier that this looks like the driest game you could imagine, and that is still true, but the design clearly seeks to correct some of the more frustrating aspects of Monopoly gameplay. First, there's the token. There's just one in this game, so no arguing over who is the awesome top hat and who is the, iron. All of the players take it in turns to move this one token around the board. The board itself representing the financial year, not physical locations at all. On your turn, you choose one of the cards in your hand, a card that has a number ranging from 1 to 5, and then you move the token exactly that far around the board. There is no random movement here. You know exactly how far you will move, which means you can target specific spaces on the board, either to gain a particular benefit for yourself or cause a specific obstacle for the other players. Each player takes on the role of an insurance syndicate, but to be honest, this is totally meaningless. They don't do anything other than offer up a little story and a jokey company name. Or at least I'm guessing they are supposed to be jokes. Hauselberger, Harding Jones and Chinless sort of has the construction of a joke, but it's not really funny. And then not all of the syndicates have these punny or joke names at all. Some are just straight up business names. And what's stranger still is that they all have these really long bits of background text and lore that explains their history, except it's not a joke or a sort of funny story, it's like a really serious biography of these proper insurance firms, even though they're made up. So it's just a very odd tone for this game that's got spitting image style satire, insurance guys killing themselves on the cover and in the art, and then it's got really super serious storytelling for just the companies that you're playing as. Mechanically, the game is actually really interesting. When you've chosen your card and moved the token the right number of spaces, you might be in the square on the board where you can buy an insurance policy. Policy prices vary by the risk associated with them and the quarter in which you buy them. The later in the year you get, the more expensive policies become, because you're not going to need to hold on to them as long before they cash out for you at the end of the year. Again, we get a tonal nightmare with the policies themselves. Some are silly stuff like footballers' knees and golfers getting struck by lightning, but then there's also Colorado beetles destroying the entire potato crop. What is great though, is that the risk these policies represent can be realised in interesting ways. You see, there are some squares you can land on around the board that mean that some insurance policies will need to be paid out. That golfer really did get struck by lightning, or an oil tanker really did sink. The way that you determine which policies come due and which players are going to take a berth is through the Table of Fate. So this is a massive and complicated looking table of dice results in the middle of the board. Next to the rows, there's black dice, and next to the columns, there's white dice. You're going to roll one of each and consult the row and column that's going to give you a number, and then every player is going to check every one of their insurance policies, and if that number is on the policy, it's going to need paying out and the player is going to lose money. But here is the really fun part. Before you roll any dice, every single player has the opportunity to buy or sell or trade any policy that they own. This is one of the few times in the game where you can actually do that. So there are some real opportunities here to mix up the game state. If you don't like the risks that you're carrying, you can try and sell stuff on. You can sell it to the bank, you can sell it to other players, you can give it to them for cheap, or you can try and make a song. It's a really fun opportunity for a bit of interaction between the players. And then, when all of that trading is done, the player whose turn it is just rolls the black dice. So now you know which row is going to be affected. But before you roll the next dice, there's another opportunity for trading and selling between players. With the risks that you now know are coming, you might want to offload some of that stuff that's going to be a real dangerous policy to own. It's a great system that means there can be a whole load of confidence and bluster, followed by fear and panic selling when the dice start rolling. There's a few other rules like getting an annual salary and random events that can wreak havoc, but once players get the basics, there is a ton of strategy available and loads of ways to climb ahead or try and push others down. In 1993, Ian Livingstone designed a new game called Alibaba. In it, players take it in turns moving Alibaba around the board, collecting and then selling various pieces of treasure, all the while hoping that Alibaba doesn't catch them and cost them money. This was a rather cryptic reworking of the Calamity rules with a completely new theme and a few revised mechanisms. Sadly, it doesn't seem like Alibaba was much more successful than Calamity. So that was Lord Andrew Lloyd-Webber's contribution to the history of Games Workshop. It is a really odd game. I am really surprised at how fun it was to play though. I don't know if it's the mechanisms that made it so much fun or if it's just the classic entertainment of getting together with friends to play a board game. Whatever it was, we really enjoyed playing Calamity and we'll be playing it again. I can't help but wonder though if it would have been more successful if they'd leaned into that Lord Andrew Lloyd-Webber branding and focused it on musicals instead of insurance firms. It's so dry and inaccessible as is. Whereas if you were not buying insurance policies but were rather putting on a musical show in the West End, and you were trying to hire actors and venues and sell tickets and promote the game, promote the show, I think that that would have been a far more accessible and interesting version of this game that might have encouraged people to get more into it and also, presumably, get more support from Andrew Lloyd-Webber. According to Ian Livingstone, because he didn't like the version of the game that they ultimately produced, he went on TV shows to promote the game and just talked about his musicals instead of the board game. They didn't get any press, they didn't sell anything. They almost lost money, except for the fact that the Century Insurance Group had sponsored the production, which meant that they didn't actually lose out because of it. I can't help but wonder if that is some kind of insurance dramatic irony in the production of this game. In any case, I hope that you've enjoyed joining me just for a very brief look at this very strange part of Games Workshop history. It was a real find for me. I really enjoyed playing it and I've enjoyed talking about it. I hope that you did as well. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, please feel free to subscribe or to send a super thanks or leave a comment. I really appreciate all of that sort of stuff. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well, at Joylin Sorcery. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. I am Jordan and this is Joylin Sorcery. The Anthony Deveraux partnership was founded by Tony Deveraux in 1972. At that time, Tony had specialised in highly geared mortgages and expensive policies entirely designed to maximise tax advantages in association with the Axe Chapel Group. He quickly, honestly, it's all like that and it's really, really long.